My name is Diana Kovalev, and I will be talking about an example of an instructional learning method known as reusable learning objects. A good definition of this would be a tool that can be reused over and over. For example, learning modules that can be accessed online and reopened at any point. One of the reasons that this learning method is not well known is because of the lack of a standard definition for it. According to our textbook, these can be workbooks, study guides, workstations, videotapes, internet modules, and computer programs. Other sources define it as small, interactive, and visual sources of information that are congruent with the learning needs of the student. The domain of learning that reusable learning objects are associated with is the cognitive learning domain. For example, e-learning and modules are a good start to relay knowledge and information to the student. According to the taxonomy of behaviors, they can increase in complexity and challenge the user's ability. For example, there is an online simulation on CPR, and the learner here is timed in their response and quizzed on the steps they need to take to save the person. This uses critical thinking skills, and in the taxonomy of behaviors, it requires the person to apply what they know and analyze it to then respond appropriately to save the person in their CPR. Since reusable learning objects require the use of a computer, they are less useful in promoting psychomotor or affective skill development. Through the computer, there's no hands-on learning, only visual and auditory sometimes. Likewise, emotions and feelings are rarely required when the student is following step-by-step instructions. However, according to our textbook, simulations, which can be online simulations through things like case studies, do somewhat promote psychomotor and affective skills because they require that higher learning and critical thinking skills. An example of where and how reusable learning objects are applied is in health science. Many students in the University of Nottingham School took general education courses, and most of them struggled with topics like chemistry. The school, they made an online reusable learning object for the students to have in addition parallel to their class they were taking. The results showed that the students that used the reusable learning objects increased their percentage of correct questions answered in chemistry. So the reusable learning object was a positive influence in their learning. Here is a screenshot of an online module that was used to help the students understand something like the structure of an atom. It begins with a short summary and an overview of what the student can expect. There are also tabs located above the material. They're titled Structures, Properties, etc. for the student to work through at their own pace, at their own time, where they have computer access and internet access as well. The reusable learning object is interactive. The student is not just reading off of the slides. There's a person narrating, and there are tabs that prompt the student to click on answers, to click on pictures and things like that, and follow procedures so that they're able to understand the information that's being taught to them. An analysis was done to assess the effectiveness of the reusable learning object. The researchers in this study used feedback surveys at the end of the modules, and the learners here provided comments and shared their input on how they felt that the reusable learning object was either useful or not. In this study, many of the students felt that the reusable learning object was useful and it helped them understand the content being taught in their class. There was another case study done as well using the effectiveness of reusable learning objects. The topic of this one was placement-based learning and dyslexia. The learners also followed modules with prompts and then a feedback survey at the end. There was also positive feedback on the module's content, but most of the negative feedback was aimed. Reusable learning objects have a lot of pros. The first one is they're very flexible. students and the learners are able to access them wherever they want and whenever they want, in the middle of the night or anything like that. Since they're online, the developers can make them reusable. Some modules can only be. Unfortunately, these reusable learning objects do have cons. They're not very suitable for large audiences. They're not suitable for a group work, since they're intended to have one person learning from the. In healthcare education and student, peer, and patient teaching, the most appropriate use of reusable learning objects. This has been Diana Kovalev presenting reusable learning objects in Nursing 322, Teaching and Learning.